potatoes. Not just a deep dive, it's the deepest dive into Minnesota Vikings football.
And yes, it's that time again, meat and potatoes, Zolgad, AJ, and Forno to talk about the Vikings and Sam Darnold's improvement. Not just do it on the surface, but do a deep dive into what Tyler saw from the film on Sunday, which obviously was a marked improvement from the previous week. But before we get to that, I want to give a quick shout out to the exclusive personal injury law firm of Purple Daily, and that is our friends at Nicolay Law. Nicolay Law knows that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life, it can come to a stop and things can get complicated. During that time, insurance companies are likely to pressure you. They don't care if you get better. They don't care if your bills are piling up, and they don't care that you may not be able to work. But Russ and his team at Nicolay Law, they do. It's why you should fear the beard, because they've seen every play the insurance companies have, and they'll make sure you get the compensation that you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay. Start your path to winning at nicolaylaw.com or give them a call, 1-855-NICOLAY, nicolaylaw.com. That's NICOLET. See Russ right there perusing around U.S. Bank Stadium, just like he's going to around the courtroom to make sure you get what you deserve. All right, gentlemen. Forno, we were corresponding a bit about this on a text yesterday, but I'm very curious from going through the offensive film of the Vikings and Titans, and just to be clear, it might not have been a pretty game, but it's still a win. You won by enough points where it's not like nip and tuck. But I think the one thing that we saw for sure was Sam Darnold went from having what was a very rough day against Jacksonville to what I thought was a really sound, good performance on Sunday in Nashville. What did you see on film from what Darnold showed as far as the progression went?
Simple. He calmed down, he listened, and he played mistake-free football. You can tell he's just getting more and more comfortable as the season goes along. Against the Jaguars, it was less of a process issue and more of just an accuracy issue. I actually thought going into the game, it was 12-mile-an-hour winds that were projected. Nobody mentioned anything on the broadcast. Nobody mentioned anything after the game. But I wonder if maybe Darnold subconsciously was overcompensating for some of those potential wind issues, if there were any, because nobody said anything about any wind gusts. I can't confirm or deny anything, but it just has me thinking, because like if you're in the backyard and you're just throwing and it's a windy day, you'll overcompensate for the wind and you'll try to hey, it's going to be blowing right to left. I'm going to throw it a little bit more right, like aiming point, so then it'll come back to where I actually want it to go. And I'm wondering if maybe some of that could have creeped into his head, because his misses weren't exactly like humongous misses. They were like a couple yards to the left, a couple yards to the right. It wasn't like huge. So think, okay, we can kind of rein this in. And if it was a wind thing, which, it's not impossible, maybe that had something to do with it, because against the Titans, he was spot on. Everything was great. He was making proper reads. He was not forcing the ball. He was attacking downfield still. But what really stood out to me was two things: the pocket presence, and I loved the structure of some of these play calls. So what I want to talk about first is that dagger concept to Jordan Addison for that touchdown. Okay?
Perfect. Yeah.
That not only do you have dagger concept, and this is a really good example of what beats Brian Flores' defenses too, because when you run like a zone blitz, when you run a pressure where you're sending 5 or more guys, you're going to have voids in a zone behind it. And that's kind of what we saw here. Jeffrey Simmons drops. You don't want Jeffrey Simmons to drop, just like the Vikings didn't want Danielle Hunter to drop. But sometimes you have to throw curveballs, and that's like a cost of doing business. So if he drops and you have 6 guys in coverage, all right, the hole is deep middle. They pepper that, they hit it. Addison gets the in route right in front of like the dropping corner on the outside. I think it's like cover 6, where it's like quarter, half, because we'll talk about Jefferson, where Jefferson's cover guy was, kind of tells me it wasn't true quarters. So you have Addison cutting in, and when he catches the ball, he's got a runway. And because he's got that runway, he's able to kind of bend and go in untouched. One of the reasons is because Jefferson runs a hitch route on the bottom. He runs like a 10-yard, just a simple hitch. But that flat corner, I believe, is Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who I love that dude. I wish he was a Minnesota Viking. Because that flat defender is there and Jefferson stops, that flat defender is going to be sitting right there. So guess what? He has to go around Justin Jefferson to get to Addison. So that keeps that runway open. And those little touches are what separate a good from a bad play caller or a great from an average play caller. It's little nuances, and that's where this illusion of complexity comes in. Dagger is not a hard concept. Dagger is a concept everybody runs. Everybody runs a version of Dagger. Everyone runs a version of Mesh. They're just kind of uniform across pretty much every single offense you're going to see. Like even like the air raid and run and shoot, they'll end up kind of doing some Dagger stuff, even though a lot of what they do is based on manipulating coverage. So the fact that, that they hit that kind of creativity and they were able to hit it against the right defense, tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. But what also stands out is how they called the protection, which you could argue could have been a little better but also gets confusing because Simmons drops. And this is where, like last year, that Bengal Hawk concept, where you have all these guys lined up, but who drops is based on how the center moves. If the center goes right, those guys on the right drop, because then the center is theoretically blocking nobody. So you have two guys drop, and that's where like Harrison Phillips would drop last year. Like that's kind of the cost of doing business. It's meant to be able to get pressure on the quarterback quickly because you're overloading a side. And then because of that, you have Cam Robinson sliding in, and you have Arden Key, I believe, on the outside with an arc. Well, Josh Oliver intercepts him at that arc and gets enough of a chip for Sam Darnold to take a step up and fire that dig route. Darnold gets hit a little bit. He doesn't go to the ground, but he gets hit, and it's a touchdown. But Darnold, it's a play action too. So this is a longer developing concept. This is where we talked extensively about the fact that the Minnesota Vikings are asking the offensive line to play at a hard difficulty level. This is a concept that takes a while to develop, and you have to be able to hold your ground long enough, and they did a great job. Oliver's chip was just enough. Darnold knows he's coming. He can feel it. He takes one step and hitch up into the pocket, fires that dig route, touchdown.
And I heard all throughout the broadcast on Sunday, Forno, about like the progressions that he was going through. What was so much different, maybe set up, or maybe it was just a Tennessee defense that was more susceptible to it. But it seemed like he just was so much calmer. Was there a certain scheme or like play drop with this Dagger concept that you're talking about that allows those progressions to just happen quicker so he can go through the options and find that safe receiver? Or what was going into that to where he just looked like a night and day difference from what we saw 2 weeks ago, or even 3 weeks ago?
So the interesting thing about that, AJ, is we've seen this exact stuff from Darnold all year. Nothing about today was new. And we kind of went talking about the all-encompassing Minnesota Vikings. Literally nothing about this Vikings team is too surprising if you really think about it. It wasn't going to be a surprise if Darnold was really good. It wasn't going to be a surprise if the free agents they brought in were really good. It wasn't going to be a surprise if Brian Flores had one of the better defenses in the National Football League. The one thing that was surprising is it was all happening together at the same time. No one individual thing is overly surprising. Everybody knew Darnold had talent. Everybody knew that he was in bad situations when he was a starting quarterback. Everybody knew he got a lot out of his time in San Francisco. So he comes here to Kevin O'Connell, who's arguably just as good, if not better, of a quarterback whisperer than Kyle Shanahan, and you're seeing a lot of success. He has the best supporting cast he's ever had as a starting QB. Like, none of this is all that surprising. It's just the fact that it's all happening together and the fact that it's happening with pretty much a lot of consistency. And I think that's the big thing with this game. Nothing of what he did was too surprising. Nothing of what he did was something we haven't seen before. He strung together 4 consecutive quarters of really good mistake-free football. His one turnover-worthy play was a fumble where it got knocked out of his hand. And I think I don't have the exact number because I don't have access to all of PFF, but I think the turnover-worthy play was when Arden Key stripped the ball, but they ended up ruling that it wasn't a fumble, that he ended up regaining possession when his knee hit the ground.
Correct.
That was his one turnover-worthy play, which you don't love it, but he didn't put the ball in harm's way through the air, and he had 2 big-time throws. That's awesome. That's great to see. And if
and
you
that
can
was the
get
bounce back.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most important thing about it. And I do think, though, that we shouldn't, and you've touched on this, I don't think we should ignore, too, what O'Connell meant here. Because, like, if you go back to probably last Tuesday or so, right? O'Connell literally, and he talked about this, he hasn't talked a ton about it, but he did talk about the fact that he worked with Darnold very closely, met with him more. And I think just from a human standpoint, the fact that he got him back to a place to have a game like that, and I mean, the play calling is a different story, and that was great. This whole thing of, O'Connell shouldn't call plays. Look, I've seen guys that shouldn't call plays. Kevin O'Connell should call plays. But just from a standpoint of coach / mentor and quarterback, I mean, that's probably as impressive a week as O'Connell has had, because he took a guy who was probably down on himself, a guy who, to your point, Forno, has the talent, but was sort of scuffling a bit, probably had some question marks, and he brought him back to a place where he played a great game, and in fact, I believe posted the best PFF grade of his entire career. Like, to me, that's a team effort. That's the quarterback, that's the coaching staff, that's a lot of things, but that to me says a lot about the entire system, that you went from Jacksonville, which was okay, to Tennessee, which was okay, that's really good. Like not, that wasn't a bounce back game where you got by and he threw a pick. That was a bounce back game where he did not throw a pick. There was a fumble that was on a botched pitch, which is a different story, and I don't necessarily blame the quarterback completely, because that's a hand-in-hand thing. But, like, to rebound like that, I don't care if it's back-to-back bad teams. I was concerned coming out of Jacksonville by some things, as you said, accuracy, and I was not concerned coming out of Tennessee. And within 1 week, in season, in the dog days, that's a pretty impressive statement, I thought.
Oh, very impressive statement. It was really, really cool to see just that little bounce back. And when you have something bad happen, how are you mentally going to be able to handle it? How are you mentally going to be able to grow? As a coach, it can be incredibly frustrating, because theoretically, some of the stuff you're asking them to do, like in a vacuum, isn't that hard. In a vacuum, it's not that hard to go from progression to progression to progression. What makes it hard is the pressure that the defense puts on you. What makes it hard is the stress of the situation in the moment, but not exactly what you're doing itself. So it's about balancing mentally. It's about being able to be confident. And I think confidence has been one of the toughest things with Sam Darnold over the course of his career. He hasn't been confident in the offensive line from him. He hasn't been confident with the coaching staff. He hasn't been confident with his weapons that he's been given.
Right.
You can argue that he should have full confidence in all three. Yes. Yeah, we have maybe some issues on the interior offensive line, but they rank excellent in pass block win rate, which is holding over 2.5 seconds, which is what O'Connell's asking these guys to do on a regular basis. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League against the blitz. Like, he's doing a great job in some of these areas. And you know what? That confidence you can see. You can see he's got confidence when these longer concepts are coming into play. And when these longer concepts are coming in, he's standing in the pocket and not trying to bail it. When he senses pressure, he does try to maneuver in the pocket. He does try to get out. And he did a phenomenal job against the Titans. There was one play where they sent 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And he's in the pocket. He senses pressure to his backside. There's a gap between Cam Robinson and Blake Brandel. He slides in the gap and peppers a little double move by Justin Jefferson right in that honey hole. Boom. Perfect. 25-yard gain, first down, keeps the drive moving. So many examples of that. And if you need examples, you can go to my Twitter. I have a ton of clips I posted on Monday morning at The Real Forno. And just tremendous job. There's a belief in him. O'Connell has peppered that. The team has peppered that. This isn't just, hey, you're just some random dude, okay? This is, I believe in you. This is, we believe in you. And we believe that this talent can help us take us to the next level. We believe that your ability, because there's a difference between like talent and skill. Like Aaron Rodgers to me is like one of the most skilled quarterbacks ever. But like if you're just talking raw talent, I still firmly believe Michael Vick's the most talented quarterback of all time. But there's a difference between your talent and how you apply it. And they believe Darnold not only has the talent, but he can apply it in the proper way in order to take you to the next level. And that belief in him, that belief from him it's all kind of encompassing and really focus in on this one game. This should have been a 30-6 win. If you take out Josh Metellus taking an atrocious angle on that 98-yard touchdown.
And Naylor catch that ball.
Yeah. You're not even asking Naylor to do anything hard. He did the hard part. Like, I think the Vikings have a sneaky need at wide receiver 3. I don't think Jalen Naylor's been good enough.
That was a great throw.
You can also argue that, hey, how important is wide receiver 3 with this team, considering how much heavy personnel they use, considering you have Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson. That wide receiver 3 still needs to be enough of a threat. Like, I kind of look at it like, Odell Beckham Jr. is at the end of his career. And I'm not even advocating for Odell Beckham Jr. But what OBJ is in Miami, just a solid enough wide receiver 3 to keep teams honest where they can't just leave him alone. That's
a guy with reliable hands is what you're talking about.
Yeah, a guy with reliable hands who can create separation against your second or third corners.
That drop against the Rams really hurt too. Like that was a big drop as well. So yeah,
that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for great. I'm asking for, hey, go find a guy like modern day Adam Thielen would be perfect in that role. Like, unironically, just a guy you can ask to create separation in short and intermediate ways. He's good enough athletically and like with that wheel route concept they got for the touchdown against the Giants to be that wheel route guy. Like, you don't need a ton, just enough. And I don't think Naylor's done enough. You can point to the 5 touchdowns, but let's be real. Touchdowns are inherently random. Saquon Barkley has 10 touchdowns. He could arguably have 18 because he's been robbed of so many at the goal line by Jalen Hurts.
Like tush push.
Right.
Yeah, but you can't blame him for the tush push, but that's why touchdowns don't tell you the whole story. Calvin Johnson's 1,900-yard season that set an NFL record, he had 4 touchdowns. He got tackled inside the 5 like 6 times. It's bonkers.
Go ahead.
Forno, you're mentioning the running back here, and so you mentioned wide receiver 3 concern. You bring up Saquon Barkley. I want to know about am I overreacting to say, should we be concerned as Vikings fans about Aaron Jones? He had 15 carries for 39 yards. Cam Akers had 5 less carries and only 14 yards less than him. The Titans, they're kind of a middle road, like rush defense. Like they're 12th, so they're not in like that elite upper echelon. But at the same time, I would expect more on 15 carries by Aaron Jones. Is there some concern there moving forward here, or is that just an off week for Aaron Jones?
I think both. I think a lot of it, kind of watching the film, wasn't all on Aaron Jones. This is what you're going to get with Dalton Risner instead of Ed Ingram. And I know I'm the annoying guy. I'm the one who's bucking the trend. Everybody thinks Ed Ingram is bad. I've had qualms with how PFF has graded some of these guys this year, especially Ingram. I think he has been nowhere near as bad as the grades have said. And that's why I've always been an advocate of, hey, watch the All-22, form your own opinions, and then kind of take a look. Like, Risner was worse than Ed Ingram's overall season performances as an aggregate last week. I didn't think Risner was very good. He's a terrible run blocker. There were multiple runs that I saw that were his fault of why the play didn't get more yards. And we can talk about the running backs, which I think Jones, he's older. He's got mileage on him.
He's playing hurt too. You could see his ribs are not right. Mm-hmm. He's hurt. He's trying to play hurt.
It might be good to just sit him down for a week and let him heal, because you're going to need him for the stretch run.
Absolutely.
You can't, I think Cam Akers looks a lot closer to the guy from Florida State than he does to the guy who's torn his Achilles twice. I saw some nice burst cutback ability. Like, he looks fine. I don't think he's a starting level back, but I think he's a good complementary piece, which is all you're asking him to be. Mm-hmm. But the issues with the run game stemmed from the offensive line, and I really think Dalton Risner is just not good enough as a run blocker. We can talk about it till we're blue in the face. Look, is Ingram good enough to be this team's right guard long term? Probably not. But he's way closer to average and an overall aggregate than Dalton Risner is, and that's going to be my argument until the end of time.
But it's clear, it's very, very clear that O'Connell won this war and picked pass protection. Like you're picking one. Do you want the guy that you trust more in pass protection or run blocking, which is a really less than ideal thing to say? Like, it'd be nice to get a guy that was just good at both. But I mean, O'Connell clearly for like a month plus had been pushing for Risner to play a position, by the way, that he had never played before. Like, right guard is new. And I think Darnold, coming off the struggles in Jacksonville, O'Connell wanted to give him everything possible. So they literally did choose the guy that they thought could pass pro, knowing full well what you just said, which is he's not good as a run blocker. So it's an interesting choice. I am very hopeful that whatever they do for 2025, they can find a right guard that they can trust at both, because they clearly don't trust Ingram as far as the pass pro goes. But like that's sort of a dicey. It's an interesting thing to talk about, but that's sort of the dicey thing here is they're choosing the guy that they basically think can help Darnold more. But then to what you and Age are talking about, your run game is going to take a hit. Like, I don't think there's any question about it. It can be Cam Akers, it can be Ty Chandler, it can be Chuck Foreman. Your run game is going to take a hit. It's the bed they've chosen to sleep in, basically, for lack of a better explanation.
I think it's you can make an argument that it's the wrong bed to sleep in for a couple of reasons. One, O'Connell is asking these guys to play at a ridiculous level because Sam Darnold has the third highest time to throw in the league, and he's peppered in at number 1 for a few of these weeks as far as like a season-long thing. 3.08 seconds to throw the football.
Yep.
Second place is 3.09. First place is 3.1. You're asking him to stay in the pocket for a long, long time. You're asking him to do these things. And Ingram's been okay at pass blocking. He got beat up a lot early on. But I think since the bye, he's been significantly better. Yeah, he's still getting beat a little bit, but you're getting movement in the run game. And the run game is going to be more and more and more and more important as the season goes along, especially if the Vikings are projected to be road warriors. Like, they're probably going to have to play on the road the entire playoffs, which means you might not get to play indoors. And the running game is going to be way more important. So,
I'm not convinced that this is Dalton's job. Like, I'm not convinced that this is done yet. I don't think that they're going to, I think Dalton will start again against the Bears. I don't think they're going to switch it, as O'Connell said, week by week. But I also am not convinced that this is here to stay. Like, I am curious to see. I think that there is another chapter here. I will tell you one solution I've got, though, Forno. I got one solution. Goal line. Go heavy. Put Ingram in. Leave Reisner in. Go heavy.
Yeah, and you know what? I would actually consider putting Ed Ingram in over Reisner on goal line, because here's my big issue with him, and I've just kind of figured out my big issue is I really do prefer Ed Ingram's style of play, and I don't like Reisner's, because Reisner is incredibly passive, especially in the run game. Like, one of the big things knocking Christian Darrisaw coming out of Virginia Tech was he was too passive. He wasn't burying people. He wasn't a bully. Well, he gets to the NFL, and I think it might have been how Virginia Tech was coaching him, because now he's driving people in the ground. He is burying people 6 feet under, and he's got that aggressiveness to him. So when you watch Reisner play, there's a couple clips. He's just letting guys come into him, and he's just trying to stop them. He's not trying to push. In the run game, you need to drive block. In the run game, you need to push guys out of the way. You need to do those things. In zone plays, you have a guy like Tavondre Sweat, who is huge. He's like 365 pounds. All right. So, but there was one play where Sweat got a tackle for loss because Reisner has the ability to drive that inside shoulder. So, and push him completely out of the way. All you have to do is get good leverage, squat a little bit, and push. You're using Sweat's momentum against him. You can do that. It's still a hard block, but it's one that you should be able to make at an NFL level. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that at all. He completely whiffs. Instead of the inside shoulder, he's like right here, and all Sweat has to do is put his foot in the ground, pop out, and get the tackle. If you get that inside shoulder and you use that momentum against him, you're making enough of a hole for Akers to be able to cut back and at least get a few yards. But you're letting him do that, and you're letting him be able to get through. There's a draw play where instead of like short setting. So the idea of short setting is you're kind of selling the idea of quick game, because it was a draw play. And the draw play, you want to sell the idea of pass. So Blake Brandel is a short set. So he moves forward like 6 inches and gets the guy. But Dalton Reisner drops so he can throw him a pass set. So all of a sudden, Jeffrey Simmons, instead of maybe being like a yard in, he's already 3 yards in before Reisner touches him. And that completely blows up the play. Like, you have to be able to get something. You have to be able to do some of these little things. And he's just not good at it. He doesn't have that mean streak, or he doesn't have the willingness to do it. I could not tell you the exact answer, but the lack of running game can really be boiled down to that. And you know what? The Titans, they're 9th in success rate against the run. They're 10th in EP allowed against the run. So they're a good run stopping team. There's a reason why that they were 1st in total yards allowed so far this season. It's a good defense.
Yep.
But you should have been better than what this was at. You should have had better success. And to me, that's the big problem. And I think I honestly point a lot of it to Dalton Risner, and that's a really big frustration. But I do agree, Judd. The idea of putting him in here was to try and get Darnold back on track. Yep. You did see a slight uptick if you go by the PFF grades in pass protection. I thought he was okay in pass protection. You saw a lot of double teams. You're giving Ed Ingram a lot of double teams too, because you trust Blake Brand a little more, which you should. And Bradbury slides over to help. Like, that's pretty normal. Mm-hmm. But my big thing is I'm not convinced this is a long-term thing either, because that run game is so important. And if you keep struggling on the run like this, that's going to be potentially crippling if you play in a bad weather game. You want to throw the football.
They might have
you have to be able to run.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly right. All right. Before we get to some questions, some meat and potatoes questions, it's fitting that a show with that title is sponsored by our friends at Butcher and the Boar, a gathering space for Southern-style hospitality, great for family and business gatherings. The Smokehouse and Butchers serve up signature dishes that are outstanding, high-end cuisine with a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Happy hour 4 to 6 every day. And also, Thursday night is prime rib night. Comes with a wedge salad, lobster mac and cheese, loaded baked potatoes, and an ice cream sundae. A huge meal that could serve two, so keep that in mind. Butcher and the Boar, located at 901 North 3rd Street, Minneapolis, Suite 195. Make plans to visit and enjoy a meat and potatoes festival, which this show is as well, at Butcher and the Boar. And also, it's Give to the Max week. And Age, if you can throw that billboard up all week long on Score North Family Podcast, we'll be throwing our weight and support behind the Bond Between, formerly Secondhand Hounds. The Bond Between is one of a kind animal well-being organization. Since 2009, the Bond Between has rescued more than 30,000 dogs and cats, thanks largely to the support of your donations. Thanks to our friends at Nutrisource for kicking us off with a $2,000 match. Nutrisource will be matching the first $2,000 that we raise. We at Score North are also giving away at random 15 Purple Daily beanies to those who donate in any amount via a random draw. Just check us out, scorenorth.com/donate, scorenorth.com/donate. I know everybody on this show, including Forno, has rescued dogs, loves dogs, and Forno, this is a fantastic cause.
It really is. We've rescued 2 dogs, Eclair and Cheddar, and Eclair has unfortunately passed away, but saving dogs is a big deal. And these shelters and rescues, they get a lot of dogs from the South where there's a really bad overpopulation problem, including after the hurricanes. So your support goes to saving lives, and that's more important. Plus, if you didn't know, Judd, you can get designer breeds like French bulldogs from these rescues. And you know what?
No, I did not know that.
They can even get puppies. So if you want a puppy, go check out these rescues. They do wonderful work, and you can still get the dog you want. And rescue dogs give you a kind of love that no other dog can give.
Exactly. So scorenorth.com/donate. Age, let's get to the meat and potatoes questions.
Yeah, let's do it. If you want to get your question right on the show, email into pdmeatandpotatoes@gmail.com. First one here comes from Terry. He says, what's up? It comes from Connor. He says, what's up, Forno? Definitely wasn't the prettiest of wins on Sunday, but a win is a win. My heart sank, especially, though, on Levis's 98-yard touchdown pass. Can you break down the play and why the Vikings were beat by it? I know there was probably defensive breakdowns, but was it a scheme thing or more just lack of execution?
Lack of execution. Look, you're sending a blitz, and this offensive line stinks. It's bad, but they sent a blitz, and all of a sudden, hey, you get the blitz picked up. And they throw the deep ball. Metellus just bombs it. He takes a terrible angle, and not only does he take a terrible angle, he flips his hips, and that slows down your momentum significantly. He should have just tried to turn up field, and a normal play by Metellus that's either stopped completely with a pass breakup or it's tackled, but he just blows it, and you can't have that happen, especially with this defense, how aggressive it is. You have to be able to trust those guys, and it just stinks. It's a bad play. That'll happen. I guarantee you. Yeah. I guarantee you Metellus sees that in the room, and he's probably more mad at himself than anybody else is mad at him. So that's probably gonna get fixed. It's just he goofed. It happens.
Right. Big goof.
It stinks. Like, There's really nothing else to that.
That's fine.
It's his responsibility.
But it's not a problem. Like, you don't see that on film and think, oh my God, we've been exposed. You just think that the defender made the wrong play, fell down. Next time you'll learn.
Yeah. When the blitz gets picked up, this Vikings defense can be exposed significantly. Why?
Yeah.
Because this defense is designed for pressure to get home and ease things up on the back end. Like, that's the long and the short of it. This is a pressure-based defense. When pressure gets there, they can't do anything. When pressure doesn't get there, that's when you can get peppered. I mean, that's the same with any defense, but it's more so with this one. Right. So if they're not able to get home, it's a problem. But most weeks they've been able to get home quite easy. And when sometimes you'll have the Justin Herbert game last year where you blitz 82% of the time, you get home a lot, and it doesn't matter because it's Justin Herbert. Like, they just didn't get home here. Will Levis threw a great ball because he has a lot of arm talent, a lot of issues too, but the arm talent is real. And they just got beat. I wouldn't worry about it long term. It just stinks.
Yeah, that's just fine. Terry says here, hey there, PD crew. I know you guys don't usually look ahead to the games that often, but I'm already nervous about playing Chicago. They're still the Bears, but you don't know which version of the Bears you're going to get in any given week. Their defense solely won them games earlier in the year, and I know Darnold's play over the last few weeks, minus Sunday, has makes me feel like we're walking into a trap. Can you tell me what about the Bears defense that they do well that the Vikings are going to need to focus on in order to have success on Sunday?
So they're really good in dropback EPA. They're not allowing explosives in the pass game at all. They're second in the league in dropback EPA, but they're 14th in success rate. That disparity will tell you this. They're really good at not allowing you to get those explosives, but they're about average in allowing just teams to continue drives. They're going to make you do the little thing. They're going to make you throw short. They're going to make you just march down the field methodically. They're not going to allow explosives. And I think that's going to be a really big thing here. The other factor, the Vikings need to be able to run the ball, because they're 27th in. I got to remember they are 27th in success rate, meaning of the runs that are against them, 44.7 are deemed successful, meaning 5 or more yards on first down, within 3rd and 3 on second down, and a first down on 3rd or 4th down. All right, and they're 31st in EPA per rush allowed. That ain't good. That's bad. If the Vikings can get just solid blocks and be able to expose the second level, which their linebackers are, they're paid well, but I think they're overpaid for what they are. You can be able to expose this defense and then use that, get some play actions, because they have an all-pro corner in Jalen Johnson. They have talent. And Eberflus runs a very good defense. Now, is he a good head coach? No.
Right.
But he can run a defense. So I just want the Vikings to be able to run the ball successfully, get some quick game going, trust the receivers to be able to manipulate on the second level and get some yards after the catch. Probably not going to see a whole lot of explosives, especially in Soldier Field, which really slows teams down.
And talk about the wind in November. You want to talk about some wind gusts coming off the lake there.
Yeah. You got to be able to find a way to run the ball.
Gotcha. Forno, great stuff. More meat and potatoes, of course, next Tuesday. We will review if the Vikings were successful in the ground game and also how they did against the Bears. And then that will be the end of a 3-game road trip, followed by a 3-game homestand. I don't understand what the National Football League is doing sometimes, but who am I to question? He's AJ, he's Forno, I'm Judd. We'll talk to you next week on Meat and Potatoes.